Greetings aspirants, welcome to Daily Current Affairs by CivicCentre IAS, where we try to express various articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express in UPSC CSE prelims perspective. So display are the articles which we are going to discuss today. The first article of the day is that the India's retail inflation stayed under the Reserve Bank of India's median target of 4% for the second successive month in the August, even as it inched up marginally to 3.65% from an upwardly revised 3.6% in July, so making the August inflation pace the second slowest in the 5 years. In this context, let's know what is a retail inflation. See, the retail inflation, which is also known as the Consumer Price Index inflation, tracks the change in retail prices of goods and services which households purchase for their daily consumption. Now, if we talk about CPI, that is the Consumer Price Index, in general, CPI is used as a macroeconomic indicator of the inflation. Here, it is used as a tool by the central bank and the government for inflation targeting and also for inspecting the price stability. Also know that it is used as a deflator in the national accounts. Further, it measures price changes from the perspective of a retail buyer. Remember here that it is released by the National Statistical Office, that is the NSO. What's more is that in the year 2014, the Reserve Bank of India, that is the RBI, had adopted the CPI as its key measure of the inflation. So moving further, what does CPI tells us actually? Firstly, CPI helps us understand the real value of salaries, wages, pensions, also the purchasing power of the nation's currency and regulating rates. Secondly, CPI, which is one of the most important statistics to ascertain economic health, is generally based on weighted average of prices of the commodities. Next is that basically it gives an idea of the cost of standard of living. Further, CPI specifically identifies periods of deflation or inflation for the consumers in the day-to-day living expenses. Note that if there is an inflation, that is when the goods and services cost us more, then the CPI will rise over a period of time. Conversely, if the CPI drops, that means there is a deflation or a steady reduction in the prices of goods and services. Further, let's see how CPI is calculated. See, it is calculated by referring to a base year, which is a benchmark. Know that currently the base year is 2012. If we look at the formula of CPI, it is the price of basket in current period divided by the price of basket in the base period multiplied by 100. Finally, note that the National Statistical Office, that is the NSO, which is under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, compiles all India as well as state-wise CPI for the rural, urban, combined sectors, and it releases the CPI numbers every month. So for your information, some other important inflation types are headline inflation, which is a measure of the total inflation within an economy. Here it includes commodities such as food and energy prices, but it is much more volatile and prone to inflationary spikes. Additionally, the inflation rate expressed in wholesale price index usually denotes the headline inflation, and the other is the core inflation. Core inflation, which refers to the change in the cost of goods and services excluding the food and energy sectors, which means these items are not included in the estimate of inflation since their prices are unpredictable. So hence we can say that core inflation is equals to headline inflation minus the food and fuel inflation. The next article is that the India's industrial output grew 4.8% in July, the second slowest pace in the financial year 25 following an upgraded 4.7 rise in the June. Even as mining and electricity growth slowed and non-consumer durables output slid by a sharp 4.4%, marking the third contraction in 4 months for the category. So in this context, let's know what is the Index of Industrial Production, in short the IIP. See here, as the name suggests, the Index of Industrial Production maps the change in the volume of production in the Indian industries. More formally, It chooses a basket of industrial products ranging from the manufacturing sector to mining to energy, which creates an index by giving different weight to each sector, and then it tracks the production every month. So finally, the index value is compared to that of the value it had in the same month last year to figure out the economy's industrial health. Significantly, it is one of the prime indicators of economic development for the measurement of trend in the behavior of the industrial production over a period of time with reference to a chosen base year. Here, it indicates the relative change of physical production in the field of industries during a specified year as compared to the previous year. Note that it is computed and published by the Central Statistical Organization on the monthly basis. If you look at its base year, first, the base year is always given a value of 100. Next, the current base year for the IIP series in India is 2011-2012. So if the current IIP reads as 120, it means that there has been 20% growth compared to the base year. Moving forward to the next article, it says that the Union government will roll out free health insurance for all senior citizens aged 70 and above under the flagship Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana within a week. So in this context, let's know about the Ayushman Bharat. Well, it is a flagship scheme of Government of India which was launched as recommended by the National Health Policy 2017 to achieve the vision of universal health coverage. So, this is an initiative. This has been designed to meet sustainable development goals and its underlying commitment, which is to leave no one behind. Now, if we see its significance, know that Ayushman Bharat is an attempt to move from sectoral and segmented approach of health service delivery to a comprehensive need-based healthcare service. Further, the scheme aims to undertake path-breaking interventions to holistically address the healthcare system covering prevention, promotion and ambulatory care at the primary, secondary and tertiary levels. Additionally, Ayushman Bharat adopts a continuum of care approach comprising of two interrelated components, which are: the first is the Health and Wellness Center. So, in the year 2018, the Government of India announced the creation of 150,000 health and wellness centers by transforming the existing sub-centers and the primary health centers. Significantly, these centers are to deliver comprehensive primary health care, bringing healthcare closer to the homes of the people, such that they cover both maternal and child health services and non-communicable diseases, including free essential drugs and diagnostic services. So the second is the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, in short the PMJ. See, the PMJ is the world's largest health insurance or assurance scheme fully financed by the government. Notably, it provides a coverage of 5 lakh rupees per family per year for secondary and tertiary care hospitalization across the public and private empaneled hospitals in India. So now, if we look at its features, firstly, the PMJ provides cashless access to healthcare services for the beneficiaries at the point of the service. Secondly, it covers up to 3 days of pre-hospitalization and 15 days post-hospitalization expenses such as the diagnostics and the medicines. Next, there is no restriction on the family size, age or gender. Further, all the pre-existing conditions are covered from the day one itself. Interestingly, the benefits of the scheme are portable across the country. That is, a beneficiary can visit any empaneled public or private hospital in India to avail the cashless treatment. Note that the nodal agency here is the National Health Authority that has been constituted as an autonomous entity under the Society Registration Act 1860 for the effective implementation of PMJ in alliance with the state governments. Further, the State Health Agency is the apex body of the state government responsible for the implementation of Ayushman Bharat PMJ in the state. The next article is that Panic in the time of cholera issues critical to managing a resurgence. In this context, let's talk about the cholera. Know that the cholera is an acute diarrheal infection caused by the ingestion of food or water contaminated with the bacterium Vibrio cholerae. So remember, here the causing agent is Vibrio cholerae. Here the cholera remains as a global threat to public health, which is also an indicator of inequity and lack of social development. If we see the symptoms of cholera, that is the diarrhea, nausea, vomiting and dehydration are some of its symptoms. Next, if we look at its transmission, notably a person may get cholera by drinking water or eating food contaminated with the cholera bacterium. So the disease can spread rapidly in the areas with inadequate treatment of sewage and drinking water. Further, if we look at its prevention and control measures, here the multifaceted approach is key to control cholera and to reduce deaths. Therefore, a combination of surveillance, water, sanitation, hygiene, social mobilization, treatment and oral cholera vaccines are used. Moving ahead, then how cholera is treated. Surprisingly, as a bacterial infection can cause death within hours, the disease requires immediate treatment. Hence, some of the immediate measures include rehydration, intravenous fluids, antibiotics, and also additionally, there are 3 WHO pre-qualified oral cholera vaccines. They are Dukoral, Sanchol, and Evinchol Plus. So further, globally, there are certain initiatives to curb the cholera. Among them, the Global Strategy on Cholera Control, Ending Cholera, which is a global roadmap to 2030 with a target to reduce cholera deaths by 90%, and it was launched in the year 2017. The other is that the Global Task Force for Cholera Control, where the WHO revitalized the Global Task Force for Cholera Control to strengthen WHO's work in eradicating the cholera. Significantly, the purpose of Global Task Force for Cholera Control is to support increased implementation of evidence-based strategies to control the cholera. So, for your information, the other bacterial diseases are tuberculosis, anthrax, tetanus, leptospirosis, and pneumonia, etc. The next article says that 2 months after they met in Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin proposed a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on sidelines of BRICS summit in Kazan next month, when NSA Ajit Doval called him on in St. Petersburg. In this context, let's talk about the BRICS. Know that BRICS is an acronym for the grouping of world's leading emerging economies, namely Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. If you look at the formation of BRICS, see, the grouping was first informally formed during a meeting of the leaders of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. In short, that is the BRIC. On the sidelines of G8, now the G7, Outreach Summit in St. Petersburg, Russia in the year 2006. Later, this was formalized during the first BRIC Foreign Ministers meeting in New York in 2006. Further, in the year 2009, the inaugural BRIC Summit took place in Russia. Next, in the following year, that is the 2010, the South Africa joined to form the group, and since then it is known as the BRICS. Notably, during the 6th BRIC Summit, the leaders signed the agreement establishing the New Development Bank, that is the NDB. Next, if we see its funding structure, know that currently 2 entities make up the financial architect of BRICS, namely the New Development Bank and the Contingent Reserve Arrangement. Significantly, the group was designed to bring together the world's most important developing countries to challenge the political and economic power of wealthier nations of North America and the Western Europe. Additionally, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates were invited to become members with effect from 1st January 2024. So for your information, the recent outcome of 15th BRICS Summit has been the expansion of BRICS, making it BRICS Plus. Additionally, 6 new countries have been added to the grouping, that is, the Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, Iran and UAE. Therefore, by growing to a size of 11 members, BRICS has now become larger than Asian countries, which includes 10 members, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which includes 9 members. Moving ahead to the next article, the US announced that President Joe Biden will host the 4th in-person Quad Leader Summit in Wilmington, Delaware on September 21st. With this announcement, it becomes clear that the Washington has taken the initiative to host the Leader Summit, which was originally scheduled to happen in India. Actually, it was India's turn to host the summit, and it has proposed to hold it in the January this year, around the Republic Day, but it did not materialize. In this context, let's talk about the Quad. Quad, which is known as the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. Here the Quad is an informal strategic forum comprising 4 nations, namely the Australia, India, Japan and the USA. Interestingly, these 4 countries share a common interest in maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific, promoting democracy, human rights, rule of law and countering China's expanding influence in the region. Notably, the Quad was initially formed in the year 2007 during an informal meeting of leaders from the Association of Southeast Asian Countries, that is the ASEAN. It was Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe who first proposed the idea of creating the Quad. Further, if we look at the principles of Quad, here the motive behind the Quad is to keep the strategic sea routes in the Indo-Pacific free of any military or political influence. So basically, it is seen as a strategic grouping to reduce Chinese domination. If you look at its core objective, it is to secure a rules-based global order, freedom of navigation, and a liberal trading system. Significantly, the coalition aims to offer alternative debt financing for the nations in the Indo-Pacific region. But how does the Quad function? Well, see, the Quad is a loose grouping rather than a formal alliance. That means it does not have a decision-making body or a secretariat or a formal structure like the NATO or the United Nations. Hence, unlike the NATO, the Quad does not include provisions for collective defense. Instead, chooses to conduct the joint military exercises as a show of unity and diplomatic cohesion. Further, this alliance is maintained through summits, meetings, informal exchanges, and military drills. The last article is that the newly launched mission Mausam will not just help in improving weather forecasters in the country, but also enable the meteorology department to develop capabilities to manage certain weather events like enhancing or suppressing rainfall over an area according to its requirements. In this context, let's talk about the mission Mausam. Know that it is envisaged to be a multifaceted and transformative initiative to tremendously boost India's weather and climate-related science, research and services. If we look at its significance, notably, it will help to better equip stakeholders including the citizens and last-mile users in tackling extreme weather events and also the impacts of climate change. Hence, the ambitious program will broaden capacity and resilience across communities, sectors, and ecosystems in the long run. So, as part of the mission Mausam, India will exponentially expand research and development and capacity in atmospheric sciences, especially the weather surveillance, modeling, forecasting, and management. Next, what is the focus of the mission? Know that the mission will focus on improving observations and understandings to deliver highly accurate, timely weather and climate information across temporal and spatial scales. Significantly, this includes information on monsoon, air quality, extreme weather events, cyclones, and weather interventions for managing fog, hail, and rain. Now let's see what are its features. Firstly, it integrates advanced observation systems, high performance computing, and cutting edge technologies like the artificial intelligence and machine learning. Thereby, mission Mausam will set a new benchmark predicting weather with high precision. Next, the critical elements of mission Mausam will include the deployment of next generation radars and satellite systems with advanced sensors and high performing supercomputers, so that the development of improved Earth system models. Lastly, it uses a GIS based automated system for real time data dissemination and data driven decision making. For your information, the implementing agency of Mission Mausam is the Ministry of Earth Sciences. Here, the three institutes of the Ministry of Earth Sciences, those are the India Meteorological Department, the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, and the National Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasting will primarily implement Mission Mausam. So, these are the 7 articles for today, and we'll be back with other articles tomorrow. Thank you.